All right, welcome to the lunchtime video. So we're going to use this video to go through this extra topology and figure out how we can get every single loopback address on every single router to be able to ping every single other loopback address on every single other router. So in order to do that, we're going to need to learn once and for all the difference between Juniper import and export policies and how to apply them to BGP. So let's start with basic BGP routing policies. Understanding routing policies. Each routing policy is identified by a policy name. So this looks like just how to configure it, but we're going to need, here we go. I think this might be good. The name can contain letters, numbers, and hyphens, and can be up to 255 characters long. To include spaces in the name, enclose the entire name in double quotation marks. Each routing policy name must be unique within a configuration. Once a policy is created and named, it must be applied before it is active. You apply routing policies using the import and export statements at the protocol's protocol name level in the configuration hierarchy. In the import statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are imported into the routing table from the routing protocol. Okay, so in the import statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are imported into the routing table from the routing protocol. In the export statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are being exported from the routing table into a dynamic routing protocol. Only active routes are exported from the routing table. Okay, so it's a matter of from the table to the protocol or from the protocol to the table. To specify, and one thing to kind of be more clear about what that means. So you're going to have a table for the protocol, but you're also going to have the routing table. So if I do show routes protocol BGP, I'm looking at the routing table inet 0, and then I'm looking at all the routes learned via BGP. But if I do show BGP or show protocol, let's see here, show, why is BGP now? Okay, yeah, it is. So show BGP, and then how about group? So, but I know in Cisco there's a way to see like a BGP table. So let's see if there's something like that for Juniper. Aha, so what is the equivalent of show IPBGP table in Cisco for Juniper? That's the one I was thinking of that Cisco had. So show BGP neighbors. So I guess that's kind of the equivalent. You can see which routes are being received. So show BGP neighbor, and then so show BGP summary, show BGP neighbor 10.10.1.2, and then so yeah, it looks like that's kind of not very fruitful. So unfortunately, yeah, so I guess I'm not sure what the equivalent of that is. It says you can see, I know there was that show, maybe show protocol or show BGP. Aha, so show route receive protocol BGP. So this looks like the way to do it, 10.10.1.2, and this was in a previous example too. So this is how you can see the routes that are being received and then placed into the routing table. So it's definitely not yeah, okay, so it's not really a one-to-one equivalent command as there is for Cisco, but the reason I'm looking this up is because I want a better understanding of what they mean when routes are imported into the routing table from the routing protocol versus routes are exported from the routing table into the dynamic routing protocol. I want a better understanding of what that means. Okay, so applying routing policies at different levels of BGP hierarchy. So yep, here's just, you can do it there. Send direct. So this looks like, here's a good example of sending the static. So this is what we were doing here. Aha, so yeah, you can set a static route and then you can advertise it out. But we don't want to do that because we want to have the ability to test it through pinging. Although if it shows up in the routing table, you don't, that's kind of all the proof you need. So it looks like they've got a export there. Yeah, so that's not going to be super helpful. Let's just take a look at the configuration and see if we can just figure it out ourselves. Another program is using this file. To get that again, I might want to, okay, here we go. Oops. So you can notice what I chose for the name is I chose to do into BGP, and then I chose to do it as an export. So this is going to be a route that was in the routing table, but now it's going to be into the protocol BGP. So we can see based on that documentation whether or not export is the appropriate thing to do, or if we needed to do import. So let's read that section again. And this was from the table to the protocol. So in the import statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are imported into the table from the protocol. But nope, that's not what we want to do. We've got this address here is in the table, show route. Whoops. That's interesting. Why is it not in the table anymore? Show route. It is in the table. Why was it saying it was not in the table? Okay, well, it's there. 172, that's, oh, okay. Wait. 172.28.37.1. Okay, so it looks like there's a typo there. So I'm going to need to fix up that typo. Okay, and it's 172. So this is Atlanta, and it's going to be 28, not 38. So hopefully it'll all start working better. But that's good to know that when you're importing a route, so regardless of the terms import, export, all it means is when you're taking a route that was in the routing table and you're putting it into the protocol, you're exporting it. But when you're taking a route from the protocol and you're putting it into the routing table, you are importing it. So in the language of the documentation, in the export statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are exported from the routing table into a dynamic routing protocol, and it only applies to active routes. In the import statement, you list the name of the routing policy to be evaluated when routes are imported into the routing table from the routing protocol. So this is kind of in line with what I was saying before, how you can think of it like loading up a barge with exports out to another country. The barge is the dynamic routing protocol, and then your country is the routing table. So when you take it out of your country, you put it on the barge, you know, you could easily think, oh, well, I'm importing it because I'm putting it into the barge. Well, what are you doing after it's in the barge? You're sending it out to another country, so you're exporting. And with the import statement, same thing. You might think, oh, well, I'm taking them out of the protocol, so I'm exporting them. Well, no, they're arriving to you on a barge through the routing protocol, and then you're going to import them into your country. They're an import from the perspective of the other country. Yes, it's an export, but when you receive it, you're receiving an import. So that makes perfect sense. Hopefully it's the same thing that applies to every protocol, and it's not that each protocol has their own definition of import and export, but I'll admit, even throughout getting my IP and my IS and my IA for this test, like that never clicked with me. I always had trouble knowing whether it was an import or an export, but this makes a lot more sense now. So if you're receiving something from EBGP, you would want to do an import policy so that it goes into your IGP. But if you want to send it out, you've got to do an export, which is pretty intuitive if you think of it that way. All right, so hopefully just random routers like the one here in Topeka that I meant to go in. Don't look at my password. It's just a random string I made up for the purpose of this. So let's see here. Show configuration, pipe display set, pipe no more. So that one matches. Let's see if that extra route made it in. Oh, it looks like it did not. Looks like so far the only one that has made it is 192.22.0. I don't know why that one's so special and all the other ones have had trouble, but okay. So into BGP, so it's from the routing table, and we can see now this route actually is in the routing table. It's a directly connected route. And it's also local, but that's the host address. We're talking about the network address. You'll get a host address in the table if the host belongs to the device. So, yep, this is in here. Perfect. So now the next step is to figure out why it's not being imported. Aha, oh, no, I do want to export because I want to take it from the routing table here, and then I want to put it into the actual protocol. Let's just try the pings and kind of narrow it down based on those, the ones that we're going to need to focus on and the ones that we have already got working. So let's start with Biloxi and then ping Memphis and Jackson. And I'll even take a screenshot of this and cross off the ones that I've got working. So here's Biloxi. So let's see if I can ping the loopback on Jackson from the loopback on Biloxi. Perfect, so everything's good there. Now let's see Memphis. Oh, so we've got a issue on Memphis. There's no route to host for Memphis. So let's see the configuration on Memphis, and hopefully something obvious sticks out. Such as that error that was in the other one, the just typo, 38 instead of 28. So 127.24.16. So that seems to be good. And then in the IBGP, so 127.24.16.1/20. Aha, so here it is. We're not advertising the correct subnet. So that's the issue. So yeah, good things. You know, as I was saying before, it's kind of, I think, a good thing to type it out and have a bunch of dumb typos in there, because then you get to do some troubleshooting, and that's pretty much what this exam is going to be. Just a lot of it's going to be identifying dumb typos and fixing them. So this is really good practice for that. And now hopefully that fixes Biloxi, and it does. So now let's try Miami, and this is going to get more complicated because it's across an extra EBGP connection. So yep, we've got no route to host. So we're going to need a route. Let's go back to Memphis and see what's happening with the routes there. So here we're going to actually be receiving some routes from the protocol. So if I do show route receiving protocol BGP, and then, oh, I gotta see which, oh, well, actually I can see it right there in the documentation. So show route receive protocol BGP, and then it's gonna be the ones I'm receiving from this neighbor. So, so I am receiving that. One thing that is a bit concerning though is I'm not receiving this one in Atlanta. So let's take a diversion out to Atlanta and see why this route is not being received as well. I have a feeling it's the export policy from the routing table to the routing protocol, because it's going to be receiving it through the BGP routing protocol. So if it hasn't been exported on Atlanta from the routing table into that protocol, very clearly it won't receive it. So it is being, so yep, nothing is being exported into BGP here. So we're going to need to be both exporting, and we're going to need to be importing as well on EBGP, because we want to send out this route we've learned through BGP over, but then all the routes we're going to receive, we've got to send out too. Otherwise, this Miami won't be able to ping any of these. So the IBGP is just going to require an export policy, but the EBGP is going to require both an import and both an export. But let's take it one router at a time. We're still on Biloxi. And let's fix that error where it's not exporting into EBGP. And that's the reason why it's not learning this one. And you won't need to do that on Miami because it's in IBGP. But let's add that export in there. So configure private, oops, edit protocols BGP, group EBGP, display set relative, and now set export into BGP. Commit. Okay, so now let's see. Oh, well, let's see if it's now receiving that, because, oh, still not receiving it. Oops, pipe refresh one. There we go. So let's see what we can do to go. Oh, it is receiving it now. It's just no longer receiving the, oh, I guess it never was receiving the one from, no, it was. Oh, no. Yeah, it never was receiving the one from Miami. It was only receiving the one from Atlanta. So I can roll back that commit on Atlanta, roll back one, commit, and I'll still have that in there. The problem, oh, so now you can see very clearly, and I'll keep that going. So we've got the one from Miami. Now I'm gonna roll it back. And now we've got the one from Atlanta, 172 for Atlanta. Do it one more time. Roll back one, commit, Miami. And then I'll roll back one again, and I'll do a show pipe compare. So if I add this export into BGP onto Atlanta, where it's exporting this, it overwrites the, or it doesn't allow, it no longer allows this to be exported. Only this is exported out to Memphis. So I want to have both of them exported out to Memphis and not just one. So it's pretty clear that that command export into BGP is not going to be sufficient. I'm going to need more than just that. And I have a feeling the way to do it is to expand what we want exported into EBGP. So if I edit that policy, so edit policy options, policy statements into BGP, show pipe display, oh, and I did BPG, as I'll do from time to time. Show pipe display set relative. Oops. Oh, I did BPG again. Oh, no, I did. Oh, but it didn't take. Okay, so up, edit policy statement into BGP. Show pipe display set relative. So we're only, aha, okay, so this is the problem here. We can see that when we have this applied, we're only accepting this route here. So we're no longer accepting this, and then we're rejecting all the other ones. So we're going to need to add another statement to here. So we're going to do set term one from route filter, and we're going to have to do route filter list because we need more than one routes. We're going to do AS931 routes. But that's just a list which we're going to need to define later. So show pipe place set relative. Now we're going to need to delete this statement. Show pipe, oops, just randomly skipped over to the other terminal somehow. I don't even, if there's a way I could do that intentionally, that would be wonderful. That would save me a lot of going back and forth. But fortunately, it looks like I can only do it unintentionally. But so this, I hope, is very clear. Oh, maybe it's like Shift Tab, Alt Tab. No, Control Shift Tab. Oh, I wish I could do that intentionally. That would make my life so easy, but unfortunately, I can only do it unintentionally. I don't want to cancel this meeting because that would stop recording. So show pipe display set relative. So now let's make sure that we've got that. So policy options, route filter list, and it's going to be called AS931 routes. And there's nothing configured on here now. Let's see what we've got. So address 10.242.152.0/21. Oops, and it's got to be exact. And then set 172.28.37.0/24. Exact. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got, instead of what's being advertised into BGP being a route filter that only allows this one, now we're going to be allowing this list of routes, which is going to include these two here. So I'll commit that, and I don't think it will change here because I haven't applied it yet. But once I apply it, we'll now see 2 prefixes showing up instead of 1. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do edit, protocols, BGP, and then group, EBGP. And now we've got routes that are in the routing table on net 0 learned as BGP routes, but we want to take them out of the routing table and we want to put them in to BGP. So we're going to need to export these routes. So now you can see, and this is going to be different. We're going to deal with this later, so I'll just take this out for now because it's going to affect when we ping from here, I believe. So I'll just take that out now, make this change, and hopefully, yep. So there we go. So now let's see if we can ping from Biloxi, and if we can, oh, we can't. And I think that's because it actually does need that into IBGP as well. Nope. Actually, yeah, that's what I thought. It's so we're, again, this is kind of where the intent of what I'm doing right now is learning this. So I'm going to be making mistakes because I don't entirely understand how importing and exporting works, but that's why this is so valuable right now. So we know on Atlanta, we've got a policy, and it's a list of all the routes we've got in 931. And then, yeah, so it's going to accept all of those routes, and then it's going to reject anything else. So anything coming from 931, perfect. It's going to go out and be sent, perfect, and we can see that is happening really well. But that's not all when it comes to ping, because just sending it out one way is not enough. You gotta have it come back too in order for it to respond. So we could actually see, I bet you, if we sniffed this link here, we could see ICMP traffic coming from here, but we wouldn't see it return. So let's try that. Make sure I'm still doing a continuous ping. I am. So we should see, and it could be on the other link, depending on which one is active and which one is not active. So far it's just BGP and TCP. I wonder if I can have 2 open at the same time. That would be convenient. Aha, okay, so one thing to know too is that this is going to be an issue right here. So we're going to see this issue on these links, but we won't see it on this link. We'll see it ICMP traffic sent out but not received. So it makes sense we're not going to see it here, because since the export is not set up properly for IBGP, so it's not sending the routes it received through EBGP, it's not exporting it from the table and into the IBGP protocol. And for that matter, it's not, yeah, it's not importing them either. The ones it's receiving through EBGP are not being imported into the table. You're gonna have a problem here. But let's see the ICMP traffic over this link. And again, I'm not sure which one it is, so I'll pull them up both of them. There is a way you can tell. Aha, here we go. So is there any ICMP traffic? Oh, sorry. So of course, there's no route to host. So it's not even able to send any traffic out because there's no route to host. This message basically means you're telling me to walk out the door, but I'm in a room and there's no door in this room. What do I do? So it just tells you no route to host. You're telling me to take a left turn on Winnebago Street, but I don't see Winnebago Street anywhere. So what do I do? So it's not even sending out any ICMP traffic at this point because it's not receiving a route for it to do that. So that makes no sense for it to even attempt to send out ICMP traffic. So we're not going to see any over this link. And that's because our export policy on, well, because we don't have an import policy set up on Memphis. So you can see on Memphis, yes, we're receiving these two routes, but well, it looks like they are in the routing table. I mean, I would have thought that you'd need to import them into the routing table, but aha, okay. So we're not going to need to import. We are going to need to, let's see here. So export into BGP. So import. See, I'm tempted to import this from EBGP, but this is a routing protocol, it's BGP. So I would think, I mean, there's no, that documentation we read said that there's nothing for moving routes from a routing protocol to a routing protocol. It's only dependent on whether you're moving it from a route table to a routing protocol. But from what I can tell, that happens automatically. Like we didn't have a special statement, an import statement to tell it to put these EBGP routes into the routing table, but you can see they clearly are in INET 0. So this 10.242.152.0, 10.242.152.0 is in the routing table, even though we did not explicitly set up an import statement to tell it to do so. So maybe it's just an extra thing that you would do to filter out. Like if you didn't want every single route to be imported, you'd have to do that. And then exports are the only things that are mandatory because it won't go from the routing table to the routing protocol, at least not for BGP automatically. In fact, I think that is how it works because I remember BGP is different from other IGPs in that you have to explicitly tell routes to go into BGP, otherwise they won't just be added by merit of the protocol being configured and told to look to use certain interfaces. So yeah, this export is going to be mandatory on BGP, and I think that's why it's not working on Biloxi because it's not receiving any of these routes. They have to be exported through BGP, EBGP on Atlanta. So it looks like right now they are being exported, but Memphis only has Aha, so Memphis has that same problem where it's just this into BGP policy is just not permissive enough. You can see it's only allowing this here to go into BGP. So if we look at the received routes, oops, show route receiving protocol BGP neighbor, and then, oh, I think we just called it 10.10.1.2. Let's see here, show BGP summary. Yeah, I thought it was 1.2. Oh, but neighbor. Okay, so that neighbor keyword isn't needed. But yeah, you can see I've only got 172.24.16.0. And I'm missing those other two. And then if I go and I take that out, so I'm going to remove this. But the thing is, if I take this out, now I'm not going to have any because BGP only has routes if you explicitly add routes into it. So now, yep, I've got absolutely nothing. So it's not that I don't need an export statement, it's that I need one that is more permissive. So I'm going to need to export these three routes in my route list here. So let's see if I can quick configure that. It looks like my lunch is almost over, but that's, I might need to end it, but hopefully I can get this done just so we can see. So I guess I'll just call this one routes because it has more than just these two. It's going to have an extra one. Hopefully I can get this on there before the end of lunch. Oops, I'm missing an S here. Okay, and I just need one more statement here. It's going to be 172.24.16.0/20. Perfect. And then, yep, it's going to be into BGP, so it's already applied. Oops. There we go. And then IBGP. Perfect. Excellent. So this should be sufficient to have this repopulate with 3 routes now instead of 0 routes. But it looks like that is in fact not what's happening. Did I do it on the wrong router? I did do it on the wrong router. It's got to be done on Memphis, not Atlanta. So you can see just how big of a issue that is to make sure you're working on the right router. If you're in prod, that's an outage. You just blew up the world. So, but luckily lab, the stakes aren't as high. And of course, you can set up special automation tools. You'll be using putty, better things. You can set up coloring so that each one you log into has a different color. You know, if the background's not blue, then you're not working on the right router, that sort of thing. Just use all the colors of the rainbow, so every router you look at, it's going to be colored different. You know right away at a glance if you're on the right one or not. All right, so this will be good. So IBGP, EBGP. So yep, so for the IBGP, we're going to need to export. So set protocols BGP, group IBGP, export routes. Oops, actually, yeah, no, into BGP, because routes is the name of the route filter. BGP is the name of the policy. Okay, so now we're going to see 3 of these pop up here. Oh, we got 1. Where's the other 2? Oh, and it looks like my changes actually didn't include all of those for some. Oh no, it did. Oh, okay, but I've got one here, so it looks like this is overwriting the list. So once I delete this, hopefully this will be all it takes. Commit. Yeah, because it looks like that one statement was overriding the list. Well, it's 59. I think this was interesting. I'm going to come back to it, of course, as soon as I can, right after work. And hopefully we can get this figured out, because it's kind of an interesting issue, and it's really going to solidify understanding about BGP and just any routing protocol import and exporting on Juniper. So stay tuned, good things to come. Hopefully I'll get this worked out at the end of the workday.